Sheila here with Sirius Talis Moon, and this is Mercury Hour and Moon Night. Moon Beta per se. And this is where I have to see Ascendant is 0 degree Leo, Sun 16 degrees Libra. Midheaven is applying to Chiron and Aries, ruled by 11 degree Mars, and this is what I have to say about this. Let's take a look at Algol here, because there is Hebrew speakers may have enjoyed a little bit of a moment. Algol minima. There has been a thread that it has to do with Beta per se. And this is something that has worked on the frequency of fear. And how should I say that? There is a let's take a look at the minimal full goal, because today okay, so tomorrow Beta per se is minimal, which means that now it has the decreasing, the shielding, the protective, the purging energy. And we are purging something that went so far back. And this is a frequency, it's a song frequency that was embedded with the stories of Beta per se. Okay? And this is basically a calling on Beta per se because she is purging those trajectories. And that has to do with the type of work. It's interesting because Lilith is on the Chiron of Israel, and this has to do with the wound and the psychosexual wound around sexual sovereignty. Basically, what I see, and I've been seeing it for a long time, the war crime, okay, the ritual abuse and ritual rape of both Hamas, IDF, Israel, Palestine, NATO, 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 NATO. It's not just the United States. Is being exposed. And when Mark Rutte just ingressed into NATO, there was a trajectory because the assimilation of women was only around sozusagen disinformation. And some of the other trajectories, let's say, talked about sexual sovereignty. And Mark Rutte came with a statement very early on, and you want to think about it as the gun that's being put in the second act is going to shoot in the seventh act. And that gun was like that. UN Security Council, I think it's 1325, that talks about NATO not defending even UN forces and the NATO forces that will use war crimes, that will do war crimes, particularly rape, sexual harassment, sexual boundary violation. Now that gun in the second act is very important because when the seventh act arrives, NATO is not going to vouch for war criminals. Now, there's a lot of complications around that. I'm aware of that. But that gun is there. And so one of two things need to happen from that point on. Because if there are going to be war crimes, as NATO's just not going to vouch for them, it entails all of NATO. and the not going to vouch, and the them in the not going to vouch for them also entails all of NATO. So the other trajectory is that those war crimes, to begin with, can't happen from that point on. And at the same time, we have Israel, Hamas, both war crimes. And my prediction is that there's going to be something about the cooperation between ritual satanic abuse in Israel of Israelis by Israelis and Hamas and the PLO, Muslim Brotherhood of Satan. Satan is a thing that not even the gluten-filled vegan food is good for you. There's no form of sin. When I yes, and this is and here's the thing. There's an energy that's still relying on the thread of that cooperation that's not being vouched for because the same societies are covered by UN Security Council 1325. Now here's the thing. The purgatory the moon is now conjoining Son of Israel. The purgatory is that the cooperation between those who did ritual rape, supposedly prompting 7th of October and conjoining forces with the ritual rape of Hamas, which would later transform to ritual rape in Gaza, that whole cooperation is going to be exposed. That's the treason. And it goes so much back in the days. When 7th of October happened, I said the moon is decreasing. This is completion cycle of at least 20 years back. And 20 years back, I was around 20. There were the Mike's Place, there were the Allenby, the Allenby, the Allenby, the Allenby ritual rape. Cold case Allenby is going to be connected to Hamas. When I was going to one of the pubs in Allenby, once in my life, from work, somebody had a party there. One of the songs that was playing was a song about ritual rape, supposedly to liberate Palestine. Now, any Palestine that would be founded on ritual rape will be as good as, how should I say that? It's not a land that anybody, particularly Palestinian, wants to live in. And that brings in the demons of at least Israel and Palestine, but like Beta per se does. And this is basically it's Mercury hour, right? Mercury 4 degrees, separating from square to Pluto. And ruling over Uranus Sedna. That's what's underneath the treason that got the 7th of October, the 7th of October. It's the ritual rape. It's the ritual satanic abuse. And in Israel is going to be exposed internationally. Moon is about to apply to Uranus Sedna. Basically, those that move by sexual boundary violation, how should I say that? There's never been worse time for that. Perhaps on planet Earth, perhaps in 12 millennia. Because, particularly not when they try to perpetuate it, because what's going to happen is going to be governed by Beta per se. And I do not wish, okay, on anyone the governing of Beta per se when it comes to the punitive aspects of Beta per se. This is not an Ebalgiri. It's not Spica. And it definitely is not Andromeda. For many years, there have been a settling of disputes on the account of raped children, raped young boys, raped young girls, raped women, and raped men. And this is why even people like Trump, the Trumpstein is not off the radar for not a slight bit of a fraction of a millisecond. Those frequencies, let's say, are going through a purgatory and for Israel it's a big wound because we're going to find out that there is as much Israel behind Hamas as there is Palestine behind Hamas ritual rapes in 7th of October. And none of them are going to be vouched for under UN Security Council Decision 1325. My previous video talked about the fact that Article 5 has been invoked, but it cannot be invoked with the energies and the frequencies of the lower astral. And I said this is very good news for the world. Those that still try to do the residues of those frequencies will meet the full force of the punitive part of Beta per se. And Beta per se was not a girl that wanted that. And she was so enraged that she could turn a man into stone. Or, as my colleague Gladio talks about Beta per se as a planet that denotes on a mundane level dead bodies upon dead bodies. Why did two generations of men die in the Second and First World War? In between wars, there was suffragist movement, LGBTQ, and both men and women were not ready for that level of human rights. It wasn't like the gold standard was working for the common people. And then two generations of men and women died, but the women were left to deal with their own businesses, with their own, and I'm not saying this is happening right now, okay? Like I said, remember my episode Pompeii or Nineveh. But we are on that trajectory, but there is a choice here. Two generations of men died, women were left with their own businesses. It's not about even being a sex worker in that situation because the clients are all dead. They are in stones, mass graves, dead bodies, anonymous bodies of the Great War and the Second World War. And now women had to run a business, had to run economy, had to have housing. Every decision that was made politically was affecting them way more directly than when they've been busy raising the kids with the husband, working and so on. So women voted, and by the way, in Britain, women voted and they voted to preserve, they voted for the party that, the Labour Party, and then they voted for conservatism to preserve their right to vote. Unfortunately, the person that I learned this from, I don't know if he was plagiarizing that from women and doing rituals of stealing their energy. As you understand, there would be a reason for me to even ponder about that possibility. So the women that participated in violating sexual sovereignty of women and the men have a fork in the road, Pompeii or Nineveh. But whatever their decision, the implications of the decisions, they're not going to be governed by Spica or even the Nabalgadi, but by Al-Qaeda, destructions of cities, and by better per se, dead bodies upon dead bodies. Because those that try to do those old trajectories that basically would destroy humanity, since JFK, we had been in a situation where one ritually tortured child have a floater personality because they get dissociated then, that goes off, hacks into the nervous system of a mind-controlled CIA, KGB, or whatever, Mossad, whatnot, person who sits next to a red button, every now and then gets a command, press the red button, that can be a real or a drill. And the real is global, total, nuclear holocaust. How does a person get to have floaters? They were ritually raped. Now, billion Googleplex people are running with floaters and dissociative identities around the world as we speak. Who is more excluded from society? Those that didn't get the chance to rape white women yet, or those that have to stand in their sexual sovereignty because the latter was violated? Everybody knows the answer. That's why 2 generations of men die, and then women got the right to vote. There were suffragists in between wars. And I've been saying that in 2017. I'm saying this right now. Then imagine what about sexual sovereignty? Because it basically nullifies all the attempts to do economic hitmanship and the attempts to keep the world at war with itself over nothing. JFK talked about peace for men and women, which also means that if a person has a man and a woman within them, they are included in that. people who are so, how should I say that? People who are too attached to being rapists. If this is the majority of the world, then humanity will be exterminated, and that's okay. In between, there is what was in the Second World War, purging all of those who are not up to speed with human rights. And another option that we have is Nineveh. Moon is trining Venus. And those people that are going with those trajectories are the trajectories of violation are lining up to their mass grave. Look at this moon Venus. And this moon and Uranus are immediate in opposition with Saturn, Neptune, and Venus. Saturn, now here is what you need to know about Venus opposition Saturn, Neptune. Neptune is on the world degree. Is destruction of cities, mass death, Saturn, Neptune, mass death, destruction of cities, Venus, Alkaid. Around the world, around the world. Dead bodies with the remediation being dead bodies upon dead bodies. You say, how is the remediation dead bodies upon dead bodies? It was the remediation when there were suffragists, there were LGBTQ, and there were disabled people, and they were all sent to the concentration camp because humanity, not Rothschild, not Rockefeller, humanity was not ready for a free woman, a free disabled person, and a free gender, non-conforming, yes conforming, I don't know what it's called, LGBTQ. Then bodies upon bodies is remediating about conflict in the whole world on a mass scale. We are having another visitation of this timeline. But this time, Saturn, Mars, and Uranus are not conjoining beta Persei. Global treason. Uranus Sedna is global treason. Okay? How is global treason remediating? The opposition between Venus Alkaid and Saturn Neptune. Global treason around minerals. If there are global selling people to human trafficking and dark occult practices. Then dead bodies upon dead bodies, and many cities destroyed in mass graves upon mass graves, the plague, the laser focus, the whatnot, even nuclear energy is remediation. And that should be obvious. However, I do remind that Jupiter is around Procyon. And it reminds us that the peace that we're looking for, and this is why JFK was assassinated. JFK would have been on Epstein list. We love him. He's such a great guy, such a great communication. Made peace with Russia. Took United States out of its bullying position. Lovely guy. Even Marilyn Monroe liked him. I was watching the Emerald Ring again. Social engineers once sent me an entire jewelry decoration that they designed. It was, that's how I know about the, because yes, the spouse of JFK, she was inspiring Melania Trump in her style, and her ring, she didn't find the ring, so eventually she picked emeralds. Emeralds is a sign in Taurus, is a Taurus crystal. And so Jacqueline Kennedy, Jacqueline, Jacqueline Kennedy. Um, yes, but this is, but this is why JFK was assassinated. How is political assassination happening? So, but and that's the thing, to have an actual peace. He died for peace. Saturn, Procyon, Saturn made heaven. He died because of the peace that he managed to create, but without abolishing those Drumstein cults, the cloning farms, the ritual abuse. We'll have only extermination of humanity, like the Aztecs and the Mayans. Take it from a Mula Nakshatra native. Okay? And a Mercury, Venus, Ashvini. So peace is peace. It's not getting away with undercurrents of bubbling soul terror to perpetuate entire terror on earth. Frequency under the guise of peace. And I also talked about the Pluto-Neptune sextile, that within the harmony contains the separation of the mafia and the physics, economy, occult, politics. Pluto runs by authenticity. It can oscillate with power abuse, but then now Pluto is out of bounds, so it runs by authenticity. Neptune is having to surrender something. For example, for mafiosi, being caught, not being caught, will they get away, not get away? Eventually it catches up to something. But it's also there is this helplessness and so on. So as those begin to separate, the treason cults that were supporting the power and control no longer support the power and control. Now it's a trajectory, it's 20, 30 years, but what I'm saying in very articulate fashion, we do not have the sky for another Gladio operation. Which means we'll have to go Ba'aden JFK. And peace entails abolition of all those ritual torture, ritual rape, all those practices. Else, one of these, already now we have Googleplex floaters. And the people that are supposed to press the red button are practicing a way that they are mind controlled. They get command, press the red button. They don't know if it is a drill or real. All they really need is to hear a command.